I finally finished the last episode of the final season of Stranger Things. There is obviously a lot to unpack with this, but I want to start off this review with what I rarely get into spoilers, but this show has got a lot going on. It's kind of hard to talk about the story or especially talk about this final season without getting into spoilers. So, yeah, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. And obviously, if you're watching this, you don't care if anything is spoiled. So, but if you haven't seen it, go watch that shit. If you're the kind of person that watches reviews before watching the thing, and if you're the kind of person that watches 60-second short versions of movies and TV shows, I don't respect you, and I don't think that you have an appreciation for storytelling and film and television, and you should not be watching my channel because I do not think that you actually give a shit about enjoying storytelling like that. Because I don't know, I just think it's so ridiculous to watch stuff or have stuff spoiled for you before you've even watched any of it. It just doesn't make any sense. All right, now that I've shamed everybody for for living their lives the way they want to, let's get into it. I think it's okay. First off, I'll say what most people think. I'm sure felt at one point. Which if Stranger Things ended after season 1, it definitely would be one of the best miniseries of all time. And even continuing after that, it is a really solid series. It's honestly arguably Netflix's best original series, or at least their most culturally significant one that where really. People go out of their way to subscribe to Netflix just to watch this. The first season was so good. So obviously this is going to be a final season review, but I want to talk about the entire show because I've never talked about it on here. So, and I'm piecing together what I remember because I never rewatched it over the last 10 years. I haven't seen season 1 since 2016 or season 2 or 3 when those those seasons came out. So I apologize if I get any if I just forget little details, if I've forgotten certain things. But I'm going off of memory of just what I felt. Let me just talk about each season kind of in order here. The first season was so great because of the introduction of all of these things. I'm a firm believer that the first part of any story however we are introduced to the world through the protagonist, the beginning of that is always the most exciting. Always. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is the most exciting, one of the more exciting books and movies out of all of them because it's just Harry being introduced to everything. There's so much excitement in that, correct? There are a lot of things like that, especially for a lot of these types of franchises or sagas, series, however you want to put it. So the first season, because it's sheer introduction of all this stuff and the mystery of the lore of it, and not really. They kept the mystery of that so they did such a good job with keeping the mystery of what the Upside Down was and what it feels like they planted seeds in season 1 that we didn't even really see get answered or we didn't see those seeds blossom into the story until this last season, which I thought was pretty incredible. Like the origin of the Upside Down, all that stuff. Like we didn't. It's great that they really followed through with all that stuff. But the first season, just the lore of it, the lore of Stranger Things mixed with all that, using nostalgia to its benefit, and using the influence of obviously the Goonies, E.T., and all those 80s. What I love about the Duffer Brothers is you could tell they're just diehard fans of all of those stories from the 80s. The 70s and 80s, basically, mainly 80s. Obviously, there's so many references even then in this last season. There's so many references to other movies and other stories. They're not even. They don't even try to hide how much of the show is inspired or highly influenced by those stories of their time when they were growing up in the 80s. I assume. And I really appreciate how at least they did it in their own way. At least they didn't hide it, and they made sure that they used. They were very honest about that. They were very honest about how much they were just gushing over their nostalgia for this time in the movies that were coming out at that time. I feel like all that was channeled through Dustin's character as well. How much he was just a brainiac and was nerding out on all that stuff. All of the main cast nerding out, right? So that first season, 11's character is so great. They're all so adorable in that first season. When I was watching these last few episodes of the final season, they show so many clips of them when they're kids, and it's like that. I love when they do that as like a memory of how far the characters have come and how much we've been through with them. You forget those things. I'm not the kind of person that rewatches an entire series just to have context for the final season. I like to kind of watch every season as it's coming out, and then if I watch the entire series just in sequence over again. So yeah, that first season was just, it was perfect. That first season is honestly, it was one of the most perfect pieces of television to come out in the year 2016. I loved it so much. Season 2 was, I just remember it being kind of more of a continuation of it than anything else. It wasn't, I don't remember it being bad. I don't remember loving it either. I don't really remember much. I just remember, to be honest, Hopper and Eleven hanging out and having Eggo waffles, and then the ending where Eleven, does her thing and shuts everything down. There was the one episode where she's introduced to the other people that have the other numbers, and we didn't get any sort of resolution until this last season with one of those characters. And I appreciate that they did that. I appreciate that they got a lot of shit for that episode in season 2, and then they actually used it or brought it back for a reason, and it wasn't just for, those characters weren't just a one-off episode that didn't have any purpose for being there. Not that I ever felt that. I didn't even mind that original episode. I thought that episode was fine as far as the I appreciate anytime people try to add to the universe that they're building or try to add to the lore of what it is. So that episode was necessary just to show, okay, 11 is just one of many, and then that was what led to, okay, Henry was a part of that as well. That was very important, actually, when you look back at it with the context of the new seasons, the more recent episodes. So I remember season 2 just being kind of expansion, but not necessarily anything eventful. Season 3 with the introduction of Max and Billy, I believe. That season, I remember being kind of annoyed that it was because I've seen this a lot in just everything since I was a kid. The only reason I feel annoyed by adolescent romance and stories is because I've seen it just in everything since I was growing up. Every show on Nickelodeon or Disney Channel or whatever, they had such a force. They forced a lot of those relationships between the protagonist and whatever their opposite gender best friend was, and I didn't appreciate that. I mean, I can name a bunch of shows that did that basically, which was That's So Raven. I'm drawing a blank. I'm fucking high. What was it? That's So Raven, Zoe 101, obviously, and of course I'm drawing a blank right when As Told by Ginger did it. Even Stevens did it. Kim Possible did it. There's always okay, the two best friends that are opposite get together at some point. Where Stranger Things season 3 as kind of, I wasn't necessarily annoyed by that, but I remember season 3 focusing so heavily on that, and then here and there were those moments where Billy was getting taken over by Vecna or whatever the hell like that. We were getting more of the what the Vecna is able to do, right, and what the monsters are able to do, which was possess Billy and that whole thing was really good. What I appreciate about Stranger Things, no matter how I felt about any episodes or any seasons, they're always plot heavy. Every season, every episode has always been they don't forget about the plot. So as much as I thought those parts of season 3 were kind of rough, just as far as not even that I felt it was forced. At first I thought Lucas and Max felt kind of forced, or maybe even 11 and Mike, not really, because they were since the beginning they always had whatever, some sort of bond or whatever, but basically thankfully it stuck the landing for me, and all those relationships did start to make sense by the end. I remember also in season 3 where Dustin calls his girlfriend that lives in another town or something. There was just so much of that, and maybe it was just because I was I don't know, I'm my mid-20s watching it, just oh God, give me a break with this youthful romance shit that we've seen so many times. Harry Potter is another one that does it as well. I got Harry Potter, the series. I want to read the books because I feel that's not what I don't like about the 5th and 6th movies of Harry Potter is, again, the same thing, how those are such heavily, I don't care about that stuff. I appreciate when it's just kind of embedded into it as opposed to being a main focal point. There's nothing wrong with love or romance between characters being implemented into something, as long as it feels like it's naturally going there and it doesn't feel like it's the center of everything or the center of attention. Season 3 of Stranger Things felt like that was it felt like half of the season was dedicated to that, which just, I don't know, and I know it's not meant for me. I know that stuff is meant for the younger audiences that just really want to see that. They want to see the characters they love get together and love each other and kiss and you're so cute. It's so cute, right? Who cares? But I think it's, despite all of that, they did a really good job with just, all of the mall stuff, all the 80s mall aesthetic of season 3 was awesome. And like all the action is always good. No matter what, the action is always going to come through. Having said that, going into season 4 is honestly like one of my favorite seasons of the whole show, purely because I was really into that song Running Up That Hill. Coincidentally, I was into that beforehand. I think my mom got me into it, and I was really obsessed with that song. And then I heard that it was like I think coincidentally it just happened to be, we're talking like less than a year later or whatever, the show was coming out, and I heard about how that was a very significant part of it. And that sequence with Max, floating in the air and the song going, that's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in television history, ever. Like in any TV show I've ever watched, the use of the Kate Bush song and how heavily like suspenseful and action driven season 4. Season 4 with Eddie playing Metallica at the end. They were playing all of the right cards, or they did such a good job of just like making it season 4 was just fucking awesome, just fucking as rockin' as the Hellfire Club, and as rockin' as Eddie was when he was playing that fucking I forget what the fucking Metallica song is. Oh my god. I forget what the fuck it's called. Let me look it up here. Master of Puppets. That's right. Master of Puppets. I listen to a lot of music, and I don't remember everything with music because there's so much of it. But yeah, when Eddie's playing Master of Puppets, and that whole season 4 was just fucking hardcore rockin', like awesome, like exactly. It's like it was quite possibly the perfect, like, 80s metal, like rocking, like playing guitar in hell kind of thing. It was the most badass fucking thing in the world. And then this last season 5, so yeah, what I mean is season 4 was honestly perfect, like really solid, because of not only how awesome Eddie's character was and how much I really appreciated him, but they felt like they were setting everything up really perfectly for this final season, or really they were delivering so much that, like, how the Henry Vecna origin story, that whole thing was absolutely breathtaking the first time I saw that, and that big reveal of like, where did Vecna come from, or what is he, why is he like this, and before I forget, shout out to I'm talking about like fucking Zoe 101 and shit earlier. Jamie Campbell Bower as Henry / Vecna is one of the most incredible performances of any antagonist ever. Growing up, I was used to him being Anthony and Sweeney Todd. Now he's great in that too. I think he's just I really liked I love that movie in general, Sweeney Todd, but that's how I always looked at him, and now I can't not see him as Henry and Vecna. So that's always an interesting thing when you see someone as one character and then they kind of undo that with a completely new character. He absolutely destroys it. Like in this last season, he is insanely good at I don't even want to say being scary, just being very like unsettling. I was never like scared of the character because I'm just, it's not the kind of thing that, he made more anxious more than anything. It's just as scary as Stranger Things can be sometimes, it's not something that actually, what scares me is shit like the Murdoch story where he's like shooting his fucking wife and shit that happens in real life, like actual monsters, the actual like awful people, and that's what scares me nowadays. But in a world where all this fantasy shit happens, yeah, Henry is extremely like unsettling and frightening, like the perfect scary villain for like a kid to see, or whatever. Like he's I could see some kid. Let me put it this way. The way that the T-1000 in Terminator 2 scared the shit out of me when I first watched that when I was like 6 or 7, I think it was when I first started watching. The 80s and the 90s and 2000s was a little more like we were we were allowed to watch pretty much anything. So I had that tape, remember like having literal nightmares about the T-1000 and him like chasing me, because there's so many moments in Terminator 2 where he's literally just chasing John Connor the entire time, and it's just such a cat and mouse thing, that entire movie, that I had multiple like actual horrifying nightmares of the T-1000 chasing me and trying to like come and kill me. I could easily see that Henry from Stranger Things being the exact same archetype of that dream for somebody else who's watching these at a young age. So that's what I have to say about his performance. His performance is a fucking knockout, and I think that he is one of the most fantastic actors at this moment and in this show, period. No argument there. There's no way anybody can deny that, I feel like. So let's, without wasting any more time on these older seasons, let's talk about the new stuff. This latest season feels like Stranger Things at its like every vibe that the show kind of created. It feels like it maxes all of those out. There's so much action. There's so much. There's just like there's so much happening. Like every bit of that. It's only 8 episodes long. I thought it was a lot more, like 10. Or I thought it was a few more, like 9 or 10. All of a sudden, I had 2 episodes left. I was like, shit. I guess this is it. But it feels like it doesn't stop. Season 5, it just once it hits the ground running, and it doesn't give you a moment to breathe, except for that last like hour. In the very last episode, the climax happens basically halfway in, and you get this long resolve at the very end, which I always appreciate, because I just always love a time jump in any show or any finale of a TV series, especially because we feel like we really like spent more time with the characters within the last 15 or 20 minutes or so. But yeah, this season hits the ground running. It's so much action, some of the coolest shit ever, that as far as like all of them like just pulling out the big guns, literally and figuratively. It's the best shit ever, as far as it feels like a true finale and a true like solid send off for this show that we've all just been having a blast. Let's face it, this show is just fun. This show is so fucking fun to watch. I had it was a thoroughly enjoyable experience. Even the things that I'm like talking, the criticism I have, the criticisms are all like, are completely in a good way. They're completely forgotten about, or I don't give a shit about them because of how good the show is. And let's talk about just how good the production is. Every single this is the kind of show where we're reminded of why CGI can be good, and why CGI should be implemented in the right way, or implemented it. I mean, this whole last season is they're all on green screens the whole time. They're in the Upside Down the entire season. It feels like that, at least. So it feels like 90% of it's on green screen and CGI, but it's great. It doesn't matter. It's because they use it the right way, or they do it justice in that way. They make sure that it's and they got money to make it look as good as they want it to, which is great, right? I know a lot of people didn't like. Again, we're getting into spoilers here, so as if I haven't really, said enough already. Let's get into the episode that I saw a lot of people having a problem with, which is when the second to last episode, when Will comes out of the closet finally. I really didn't see what the big deal was. Did I think it was a little heavy-handed at first, and did I think it was kind of like, I can understand. Let me put it this way. I can understand why people would be like, "What the fuck why is this like?" Everything stops. It's like the height of everything going on, and then it suddenly just stops. It's like, everyone's literally about to go out and like take this like they're basically about to start the final sequence of events, like the final high stakes are happening here, right? And then Will's just like, wait, hold on, everybody, we got to stop because I have to tell you that I'm gay. So I get that's why people were probably annoyed by it, but what made me initially start to roll my eyes at first, as far as how obvious it felt like it was so blatant. I thought it actually turned into a really sweet moment. I think all the other actors and everyone else like made it sweet, or it was just, I just really care about Will's character. I really love the way Noah Schnapp plays him. I love this whole cast. One thing I want to say before I forget, I know a lot of people probably thought that like more of the main characters would die, and that, you know, there's that clip of Millie Bobby Brown saying like, oh yeah, like some of us need to die. But here's the thing. I realized as I was watching this very last episode, the show doesn't work without all of the characters. If any one of those characters, thank God no one like died or anything bad, nothing bad happened to any of them, because if any of those characters were gone, the show doesn't, it's not the show. It's like The Office, but Michael Scott dies at some point. It just wouldn't work, you know, instead of Michael Scott leaving. Spoiler for The Office there. Sorry if you haven't seen that, I don't know where the hell you've been, but you know, it's a double-edged sword. Where Stranger Things, it's such a solid ensemble. We like really like all of the characters. Like I love and care about all of the characters, even the ones that are only introduced in the last few seasons or so. They're all great, and you know, the double-edged sword of that is that because they're all great, and the show is so dependent on that, and so dependent on that chemistry that they all have and how we love all of them. You can't have that like. No, there's not a single one of them that could be missing. And if, you know, and because that's what changes stories. Not to get into spoilers for other shows, but obviously storytelling in general, characters die, right? In Game of Thrones, for example, the reason the show feels completely different at the end is because all of the best characters, a lot of the best villains and antagonists are dead. So the problem with killing characters off is that you have a sudden void of what makes the show really juicy and interesting. I mean, that's just how that's almost like why movies really work a lot better with killing characters off than shows, because it all happens a little more fast. You're not like, you know, when you spend years and years with characters and then you see them die, it hits way fucking different, obviously. Way more different than like a 2-hour movie where you're just being introduced to them and suddenly saying goodbye to them in a short amount of time. So the reason, I found that very interesting though, that as I was watching, I was like, yo, this show relies so much, and not in a good or bad way. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm just saying it 100% relies on all the characters and the gang. The gang is all here. That, you know, SpongeBob or whatever, that literally is it though. The gang is all here, and we need to have the gang there, or else the show isn't. It would just feel different. It wouldn't feel the same. I wouldn't like it. I really wouldn't like it with any of the characters not being there or not. You know, it would just feel different, feel off, right? So, you know, another thing that I noticed though too is that, especially in this final season, the writing relies so much on like dividing up what would be, you know, maybe a few characters talking. It breaks it all up and has like 10 different people on a very brief scene. The only thing that I would criticize about the writing is, like a lot of fantasy adventure action, a lot of action adventure stories always rely on this, but the use of like exposition and how much the show's dialogue literally is just them talking and talking about and explaining what they're doing and what's happening in the show. So it's so much of that. That's not a big deal, or at least that's expected. The thing that kind of didn't even annoy me, but it was just something I noticed. Like, I'm not even talking criticisms here. It's just something that I noticed in the writing. It feels like the talking is like, you know, that it's broken up into all of the different characters, that it becomes like 10 different people kind of saying one line at a time. And I guess because I saw a lot of that in theater, that's like a very theatrical thing where you have like an ensemble cast, and maybe like there are a lot of shows where it's like a main character and then they have 4 or 5 different actors behind them representing different parts of their brain or their personality, kind of like Inside Out. So I've seen a lot of that where it's like multiple ensemble actors like breaking up dialogue, and you know, it feels like a crutch sometimes. It just feels like it's you know, like you don't feel like it. Basically feels like all the characters kind of have like this one like, because the lines are divided up amongst all the characters. I'm talking specifically the last few episodes of this final season when they're really like planning on everything they're doing, and they're all in the radio station or whatever the hell, radio tower, talking about all this stuff like that they're gonna do. It feels like they're all just saying the lines as opposed to each line being specifically intended for that character, other than maybe Lucas's younger sister, you know, being crass and cursing and shit like that. All of the lines that the characters, you could probably switch their names and it wouldn't even really make a difference. That's something I noticed is like, you know, it felt like they had the lines written out and then just sort of threw them at the characters' names on a wall, as opposed to giving each of the characters a specific like reason as to why they were saying the line. And I'm just saying, because this show is so general. You know, the characters, as much as I love all of them, let me point out another, like, just a very minor criticism that I have is I feel like I could have gotten to know them all more in depth. It feels like I know them all on a very surface level, but I don't really know who they are beyond that. Like, beyond what's happening in the plot, I don't know if I know Dustin or Mike or Eleven as well as I'd like to. Or as opposed to that, I think of the show, other shows like The Bear, where we really know those characters and have gotten to know you get to know so much about those characters within 4 seasons of that series, and you know, almost uncomfortably are uncomfortably close to them in that way. Or a show like Succession, you really know those characters so vividly. And so in such a detailed way. I don't know if I could say that for the characters of Stranger Things. It feels like they like, I don't want to say it feels like they're placeholders for like the plot to have like just something explaining itself or whatever. I don't want to say that. It feels like the I don't know. Maybe I'm just, that's just me. Maybe I just want to get to know the characters more outside of what's happening in the story. Because when you think about it, it's like there's so much of the show is just the characters talking about their feelings with each other, and I know that's a lot of stories in general, but it really does feel like the show is broken down to 2 like types of dialogue driven scenes, which is them talking about what they're gonna do and what the plan is, or them talking about their feelings and unresolved emotions that they have to, you know, get out. Winona Ryder's character, oh my god, I forgot her name. Speaking of Winona Ryder, feels like she was very thrown to the side. Her character was very like practically non-existent in this last season, excluding when she's got that axe. That was such an awesome scene with the axe, because I love that they showed everything that all the damage that Vecna had done, and they showed like every bit of like every person, and they showed that they didn't forget about all of the victims of his and all of the bad things that he did. I love when stories do that. It reminds me of the movie Dead Man Walking, when Sean Penn's character is on death row basically, and I'm sorry, I'm probably spoiling all these fucking movies and all these shows right now, but basically at the end, when they're gonna give him like the lethal injection and kill him and shit, like they show like why he's there, and they show him like the crime that he committed right when he's getting, right when he's given the death sentence, you know, just basically put to death and shit. So anyway, I love when they do that. I love when they show like, you know, something happening and showing like why it's happening, or all the pain that he caused, all the pain that Vecna caused, and all the tragedy that transpired it was great that they showed all of that. But yeah, Winona Ryder's character, for example, like talking about how you know, she feels guilty about what happened to Will, and then Mike telling Will how he felt bad about what how he wasn't aware of how Will felt about him. I love that Will got so much screen time. Shout out to I really appreciate them doing that. Fucking awesome. It felt like Will was so like, you know, like outside of the relationship, you know, relationships with each other stories, and he was very, you know, not thrown to the side, but he was always like a victim. You know, from the very first season, he's always like oh, Will is gone and we have to, like, he's always like the show's equivalent of like a damsel in distress, or just something bad, you know, something bad was always happening to Will. That it was great that Will, you know, not only had so much screen time, but he was like a fucking badass, and standing up to Vecna, standing up to all of it, and finally like accepting who he was. Like, thank God that they gave Will so much necessary attention and gave us a lot of. I feel like I felt a lot more. Just like satisfaction with like that character's full circle moment in that way. So, yeah. What else? I thought the introduction of the new characters was great as well. I thought Holly and like Derek and all the. I mean, I know Holly's not a new character, but the fact that they gave her more, like she was such a vital part, like an important part of this last season story wise. I really liked that they introduced like, oh, the next generation of like, okay, like it's like how Vecna is still affecting kids. Like even though our main characters are, awkward young adults now, or not even awkward, just like obviously like they're not just kids anymore. They're super. They're very much adults now. I'm glad that they brought that. They kept that theme going of like they need to have younger characters in there for the young audience to relate to, And while the kids that were around the main character's age got to grow up with them, not all the younger audience the younger audiences after them didn't get to grow up with those characters. So it's great that they gave a specific demographic set of characters to appeal to just everyone. It feels like no matter what age you are, what I really love about this show is no matter what age you are, you can appreciate it. There's the adult characters, there's the younger adult characters, and then there's the kids. It's like there's so much going on, and you feel like the reality of this is an actual town, and there are all these characters, and this is affecting, like you see how it has this ripple effect of all these characters that it's affecting, and that if you're gonna set something in a school and in this whatever small town type of, like almost like obviously like a Stephen King type of thing, if you're gonna do that, you really have to make it feel like it's lived in, and they did a good job of that. They definitely. Even though I'm saying that I would love to feel more depth with the characters, I feel like I got to know the entirety of that town of Hawkins very, very well. And I appreciate that. I guess, the only reason I want to feel that more with the characters is because I just really enjoyed the show. And most shows don't really hold a candle up to my number one favorite show of all time, which is 6 Feet Under, which is 6 Feet Under. I think I think is like one of the few shows where you get to know the characters unnecessarily well. That I think that's just like a specific standard I have in my own head of like I want to get to know every character of every show the way I got to know the characters of 6 Feet Under, because that show is just absolutely masterful in how much it focuses on the characters and how the characters are the story as opposed to the other way around. I think they're great. I think the whole cast is handled. I mean, I hope they're all right. You see all these, like, I hope that their careers from this point on are okay too, or that like being child stars doesn't have such a crazy effect on them from here on out, because it's such a shame to see all of the child actors that I watched growing up revealing how awful it was behind the scenes and how terrible those environments were. And obviously you can tell at the Stranger Things crew and all of those, like that you could tell that there's such a lovely, at least from what we've seen, there's such a lovely chemistry, and they all clearly have a great time working together. So I'm not saying that I would expect that of the show. I just mean them being child stars in general, and like what that does to someone's psychology and all that stuff. Like I really appreciate how they've like handled all of that stuff, and I can't imagine what that's like. That's not easy. They were in that show, this juggernaut, huge like fucking show At the age of 10 or 11, no different than, the Harry Potter cast and crew and all of that. It's like, you're thrown into something at such a young age, and it's this larger than life, something that is people are just absolutely obsessed with. That's got to have some sort of effect on you. So I'm just glad to see that they all seem pretty normal, and that they're handling this type of job in a pretty healthy way. And that's all I could say about that. Because, while I wasn't in the business of Hollywood, I've grown up I've grown up around a lot of people in theater and a lot of people in the arts in general. And it's not easy. It's not an easy life. That's all. Everyone's affected by it differently. But yeah, I love that this is one of those shows that we not only really care about the characters, but we care about all the actors as well. Or, we just like them. This show is so likable, even through its, how tongue-in-cheek it can be, and even throughout its cheesiness in a lot of ways. And the acting is so funny sometimes, specifically like 11 in this last season. Millie Bobby Brown, I haven't seen enough of her acting in general outside of I don't think I've seen anything that she's done outside of Stranger Things, so I really can't say what I think of her as an actress, but I sympathize with her because I can't imagine how bizarre it would be to play a character like 11 in this last season. There's so many parts where it almost feels like she's not even underacting, but it's like she's acting as 11, which is this, she's not normal. She's like this, different type of person. So there are a lot of moments where like 11's character, I wonder how much do we know about her other than her powers and like where she's from, and like all of that is like literally what defines what her character is. But I just wish that we got to know more outside of that, or that this show is so plot heavy and it's so driven by that everything else as far as the details of who these characters are as human beings, like I'm talking like who they would be if they were an actual human being outside of this being a fictional piece of work. Like who would they be? I don't know. So that's where I find 11's character very fascinating as far, and like her acting is very interesting because it's, how do you play a character like that? There's like, there have been other characters like that, but not really, it's not like the writing offers so much for her to really get into like the inner workings of what 11's character is outside of, oh yes, she's a science experiment, right? Like that's just something that I always notice with that is as soon as you're playing that type of character, suddenly there's this, it feels like there's an inevitable limitation to what you can do with it unless the writing shows more of that. Look at that in contrast to like Mila Jovovich's character in The Fifth Element, and how she starts off being this like kind of crazy, kooky, like created whatever, same kind of similar character, like made in a lab type of woman or whatever. And then by the end of the movie, she's grown so much, you feel like you know her on a very like deeply human level. That's tough. It's tough to write that. Clearly the Duffer Brothers were so locked into building the lore of the universe and building the world, and that really is what the show is. So I'm not saying that that they should have done anything differently, because everything they did was absolutely perfect in what the show should be and what the show, like what the spirit of it is. That's all very important to me. More so important than what I'm saying, right? But what I think it feels like that's always a trade-off. It's always a trade-off as far as if you're going to go plot heavy or character heavy in any kind of story. Because I don't know if you can do, I mean, a lot of good movies or good stories are ones that can effectively do both as much as they can, but I genuinely want, I don't know. I don't know if, and in sci-fi and fantasy, the characters always take a backseat to what's going on because we're there to see the action and the big, big production stuff at its best. So all this stuff is just very fascinating to me. All these opinions are coming from a person that's obsessed with low budget indie films that are strictly like dialogue driven. So I usually am not the kind of person that watches sci-fi, fantasy, or any action adventure movies ever. Stranger Things is the most action driven thing I've watched in recent years or consistently decided to watch. Because most of the time I'm watching shows like Succession or shows that it's more driven by acting and the writing, because that's what I love about storytelling, or what I love about what I would love to be a part of, the kind of productions I would love to be a part of if I had the option to to choose whatever roles I wanted to as an actor. So yeah, you know, even though this isn't necessarily my like first genre that I go for when I'm like looking at movies or TV shows to watch, I still love a good action adventure story, or I still can appreciate when it's done well and just when it's exciting and fun. And Stranger Things does that all so fucking well. It, like I said earlier, it is so fun. But the Duffer Brothers clearly knew what story they wanted to tell. They clearly knew exactly what they wanted out of it, whether it was all a big plan of theirs from the first season, or if they had to kind of figure all of this stuff out as they went. They stayed within what made sense for the story, and they were very good at keeping everything consistent. What I really appreciate about this show, that it's very, and this is the very, like, obviously one of the hardest things to do for any continuous story, especially television shows that go on for 8 to 10 plus years. The hardest thing to do is keep things consistent and make sure you don't have any plot holes or anything that doesn't line up. And you know, while I'm sure there might be a few of those, I can't think of any. I can't think of if there was ever a time where they did anything that went against what they had established. So what I appreciate is that everything that they established from the beginning, they only continue to build off of that, and everything made sense in the logic of the universe that they had created. And fucking hats off to them. Duffer Brothers, you guys are fucking incredible, an incredible talent. I can't wait to see what you guys do next, but that is not easy to do. I acknowledge how hard they must have worked on this shit and how many sleepless nights they must have had coming up with the best way to approach this story. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic stuff. I don't know much. I don't know what else I could say. This last season was amazing. I would say it's like first, fifth, and fourth seasons are the best. Those. It's like 1, 5, 4, 2, 3 is kind of or 3, 2, I should say. I don't know. That's my personal like. What's the best? That first season. The only reason it's like hard to beat that is because I appreciate how solid this cast was as kids. It's hard to find any child actors that are actually talented or good at like showing personality. Every single one of them shows personality, and they're like having. I appreciate that that you know, they all really like showed off their chops in this last season too. I didn't think much of Caleb McLaughlin until that first one of the first few episodes of this last season when he was like with Max in the hospital and was crying, like talking to her. That was a really solid performance, man. Seriously solid performance on his role. Everyone else was great. The scene with Nancy and Jonathan and everything, you know, melting around them, that was really lovely. Having said that, now that I'm bringing them up, did they split up after the 18-month fat fucking time jump? When she said she dropped out of school, he looked like he was surprised. It looked like they had all moved on with their lives, and now they're all just friends. So I was kind of not only disappointed or kind of bummed out. Like, did fucking John and Nancy not stay together? But I was kind of bummed out that they didn't really like show they didn't really make that clear or not. It feels like, but she didn't have any ring on her finger. Clearly, like, I guess that didn't last. I suppose them having the near death experience of everything melting around them brought out all their shit, and Jonathan is talking to Steve and they're kind of making up or whatever. He says, "Oh yeah, we had problems, and it took me a long time to realize that it didn't have to do with you." I guess that is kind of the foreshadowing of like, oh yeah, they got problems and they're maybe not, you know, meant to be together, which was it's in its own bittersweet way is actually perfect because their relationship is only supposed to matter during the course of the Stranger Things series. And it's a story like that. That's like that. That's one of those things where the relationship is the show is the, you know, the point of their relationship, or is that like the fact that they like just needed each other in those moments of saving the world, I guess, you know, saving everybody. But I wish there was a little more closure with them. See, listen to how much I care about all of these characters. I'm talking about all this as like it's like a fresh send off. What I love about doing these review videos in the moment of like right after watching them is all these feelings and all these emotions are extremely fresh with me right now. I just finished ending. It's crazy. I just finished watching a show that I've been watching for like 10 years. Normally it's like, maybe 8 or I mean, I don't know. A lot of my favorite shows that I've watched were about 10 years. But yeah, the show had like obviously a lot of multiple year-long gaps between each season, and they had to make sure they were doing everything right, getting all the schedules to line up. But I understand why everyone thinks there's like a theory that there's like a secret episode or whatever. People thought there was going to be a secret episode, and I understand why. It's because they just want more of it. They could easily like bring back Stranger Things 6, and we would all watch it like years and years from now when they're all like adults, and it's like their kids. Something with like some sort of like, Stephen King's It type of thing where it's like, okay, yeah, 20 years later now everything is a new fucking battle has begun or whatever the hell they do. They could easily do that, but it's hard to say goodbye. It's always hard to just say goodbye to characters, period. I never like finishing shows or I never like finishing stories, but I also really want to finish stories and I want to finish shows. I always want closure with endings and it's sad to think there will most likely be a show or a series of movies that I myself will have this problem with, or like whenever I die. The sad thing is like how many people like die before getting to finish a TV series that they love. Maybe how many people watched Stranger Things season 1 and really loved it, they kept up with it and they died before the last few seasons aired. It sucks. But that's what happens. Like it's nuts to think that people have like probably been waiting for GTA 6, for example, and they're probably the people that are like literally passing away before they even get to play it because of how long it's like there's that story of someone recently who literally is like in hospice, like he's terminally ill and is going to die soon, and he got to like play an early got to play GTA 6. So it's cool to hear stories like that, obviously. But no, it's a shame. It's a shame if like you don't get to finish something, you don't get full closure. That's why it's important for any time the reason why television series each season does have to have some sort of closure at the end is specifically because of that. For that, even if people don't get to finish the entire series, they get some sort of closure on that arc of that season. That's just classic television right there. But yeah, Stranger Things is now another classic piece of television history, and I think it is very good. Very, very good work is all. Some of the best production ever. Like the quality of the production of this show will be analyzed by a lot of people for many years, I'm sure. Anybody that's doing especially like a sci-fi or fantasy driven story with a lot of like good uses of CGI and green screen and all that stuff, Stranger Things should 100% be like one of the few things that they analyze because it's so good. It's so fucking good. And speaking of the word, it's great how they didn't use too many F-bombs throughout the series, and then Winona Ryder saying that at the end was fucking awesome. You fucked with the wrong family, and then just taking that axe to his head, to his neck. Awesome stuff. I'm going to miss it. All I could say is I'm going to miss it very much. I miss it already. I'm like very tempted to rewatch it or I'm just probably going to wait and see if somebody's never watched it and see if they want to rewatch it or watch it for the first time and I get to rewatch it with them. That's what's great about if somebody hasn't seen something, and that's my favorite thing is if somebody hasn't seen something and I get to rewatch a movie and it's like their first time watching it. That's like one of my favorite things to do either way. So Stranger Things is it's why a lot of people are going to be canceling their Netflix subscription soon. They're not going to really I don't know what else Netflix is going to have to keep people around now, because that was the biggest thing that was keeping everyone coming to Netflix at all. Now, if they don't have another thing soon, how long does Netflix have? How long until someone else buys them out and they probably get absorbed by like HBO Max or something or whatever happens, and then someone else gets all of their catalog. That's very possible for Netflix eventually. I could definitely see Netflix and just all of these streaming services kind of merging into 2 or 3 different things at some point. But the reason I've gotten more into physical media is because of that. I'm tired of a subscription-based lifestyle for just wanting to watch some TV shows and play some video games. The video games, it's pretty worth it because of just how many video games there are and how many good ones are on those subscription services. But with the TV shows, I don't know. I've just basically decided to buy movies or TV series complete sets because I'm sick of paying constantly every month to want to watch, a show or whatever. And now I'm curious, speaking of which, can you even buy Stranger Things like physical media? Here's the crazy thing with them is that they probably don't even make physical media of these things, or they don't want to make too many copies of them because they want people to pay for the subscriptions to actually watch it. You know what I mean? Like they definitely don't have it. They have like season 1. Yeah, there's no. You can buy like the scripts. Let me look it up on Google here. Stranger Things complete, because that'd be cool. Imagine having like a box set and discs and behind the scenes featurettes on it and commentary and a poster of like the whole gang in the Upside Down or just some cool artwork. Imagine the complete box set comes with a little Dungeons and Dragons book or like a little mini Dungeons and Dragons set that you can actually like use or some I don't know, like that. I'm surprised that people would buy this shit. Hold on, I gotta see if this is, because maybe I'm explaining something that actually exists here. Complete series. Yeah, like 4K or whatever the hell. Are limited to individual, highly sought after, Target exclusive releases for season 1 and 2. Yeah, there's no only seasons like 1 and 2 because they came out like years ago now. They came out when people were still buying those things. And now that we've moved forward into what a bummer. So I basically, if I ever want to rewatch the show or just watch a random episode of it here and there, I have to pay for Netflix. This is why people pirate things. I don't. I'm literally going out of my way to buy this shit right now. And, it's fun. I really like owning. I want to own Stranger Things on like a physical disc. It'd be cool if discs actually were just a thing again, but nothing uses discs anymore. Computers don't even have normal. They all have USB-C now. They don't even have normal fucking USB. So the funny thing is how much Stranger Things is bringing back that 80s nostalgia while the show itself is locked in this prison of a subscription-based culture that we are existing in. It's absolutely fucking wild to think about that. But how sick would that be? Because they have this style of the season 1 and 2. It's like a VHS style. Or I think there are even services. I've heard people like have services where you can buy Stranger Things like on tape and actually like watch it in a VCR, which would be sick as hell. That'd be so sick to do that. But back to the show, I guess. What a fantastic show. I really am now wondering what else I should watch, or what else is that's new that's going to be coming out. I don't know. To be honest, Stranger Things is kind of the last bit of modern television that I'm keeping up with. I suppose shows like Severance, or there are other shows that I'm still, they're still airing and they're not necessarily finished yet. The Bear is still airing and that's not done, but I'm pretty sure season 5 is going to be its final season, or I assume it is. I've already caught up. Like I didn't watch that show for years, and then I caught up within like a couple months. So watched the entire series. That's how good it was. But once these shows end too, I don't know. It's rare. It's a rare thing that TV shows or movies now make me like really want to go out of my way to see them. There are definitely some new movies that there'll always be a handful of movies every year that will stay on my radar if I see them in the future, and I'll definitely watch them. But for the most part, like outside of that, those handful of movies, maybe one TV series every now and again, I just don't feel that. I don't feel like a huge, like there's not necessarily a ton of amazing TV shows being produced nowadays. Abbott Elementary, I really love. There are some other ones as well, but yeah, like a lot of this stuff coming to a close is very bittersweet for me, because it was nice looking forward to Stranger Things. Stranger Things, I'd say, was the same eventful. Like it was just a joy to have that every season drop every year, have something to look forward to. It's the same feeling that I had when Harry Potter movies were coming out. So when you have this for years and years, you have these seasons or these movies of a series, coming out for such a long time, literally a decade long, and you always have that to look forward to. And once that ends, it's so mixed, because while I want to have closure with it and be like, all right, yeah, the show's over, like Stranger Things in my head, now it's done. Even though I'm late to the game, it was done for people like a month and a half ago. I know, but I finally finished it, and it's always just like, damn, that's it, it's over. Saying goodbye is the hardest part, or whatever the hell they say. I don't know what they say. I always say whatever they say. I'm always like half paying attention to these phrases, and then when I say them, I feel like I feel really dumb, because it's the only reason I say might use a phrase like that here or there is to fill in the space, because I don't really have anything else to say. All right, yeah, I guess I don't have anything else to say about this shit. Stranger Things, season 5. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. I apologize for sounding absolutely ridiculous at times. What a roller coaster that was. What a fucking fun ride that was. And I guess I don't want to, I'm like not wanting to end this video, because once I end this, then Stranger Things is really like done for me, because this video was another thing that was a part of it to look forward to making. But I don't really have anything else to say about the show, right? I don't like one last thing I guess I'll say is, while some of the relationships work and I believe all of them, some of them feel a little forced. Like I feel like do Hopper and Winona Ryder's character actually, do we actually believe that they're a couple or feel like they're into each other? I don't know. I felt that at times, maybe in the earlier seasons, but this last season there was like a lot of, it was just kind of there. I guess all of the relationships were just there, but they didn't they had a lot going on, obviously, in this last season. But that's how I feel about some of the relationships. I wonder how much of it is like, mildly forced versus it being a believable relationship. But at the same time, it's like, I suppose the relationships of the characters, it's not really about the characters. It's like that the relationship itself represents everything that they went through together, the events of the show, the events of the story. It's maybe kind of what I get out of it more than anything. It's like the relationships. It's not about them being like in love or being whatever. It's all those characters had each other's backs, and they were there to make sure that they didn't they didn't die, and they didn't yeah, I don't know if there's so many things that I'm used to seeing, I guess, or so many things that I want to see in certain stories that if there's not more of that, then I just feel a little just like a little disappointed or something, just like wanting more. Like I always just want more out of everything, and I feel very I just love like when I feel drawn to a story or when I feel drawn to a TV show or a movie. I love just getting to know the characters as much as I can, So I guess I just would love to get to know the characters more. This is one of those shows they could easily release books for it, and I would love to read those because I would love to feel like I'm getting more of those detailed moments with the characters that maybe we just didn't see in the show. And they could easily do an epilogue with that too, potentially. Maybe not. I've been talking about this for an hour, I guess, so I guess that's enough. Clearly, yeah, Stranger Things. You could tell I enjoyed it. I had a lot to say about it, but this is it. This is an hour-long video of me talking about it. I think the entire cast and crew and every single person involved in every season did such a fantastic job. I think that this ensemble of characters is one of the most likable, seriously appreciated groups of characters that you'll see in any television series. And I appreciate that all the actors are trying and all the actors are really like putting their all into their characters and bringing as much, even though we don't see too much of that depth of them as individuals, that we get to know all of them through their performances, I suppose. We get to know all of them through their just how charming they all are and how great it feels watching them all together. And how everyone wants a group of friends like that, right? Everyone wants a large group of people to have some big story to tell with. It's something that we're all envious of with these characters, I suppose. I definitely am. I'm definitely envious of like, wow, imagine having that solid group of people that people that are awesome that you can call your friends. Not that I don't have like my friends are all like different pockets of people as opposed to like a large group like in unison kind of thing. But because that's just not I guess I don't know, maybe as you get older too, that's not really a thing. It's kind of why that makes more sense for the age of the characters, I suppose. But yeah, no, it's everyone loves to see a crew doing their thing, and you just don't get any better than the entire crew. And I mean, behind the scenes people as well, the literal crew. You don't get that much better than the entire group of people that worked on this show and brought it to life and made every bit of it just an enjoyable experience to watch. You can't watch this show and not feel like it's thoroughly an enjoyable, perfect fantasy action adventure television series. That's all I have to say about it. Stranger Things, I'm going to miss all of it. But we'll have some stuff to talk about for many years to come, and hopefully, you never know if they do spin-offs of side stories of that same lore and that same world, things that were happening during the events, but it's like other characters. They can do all sorts of stuff with that, and I won't be surprised if they do. And, yeah. Other than that, this is another review, and I want to thank you all for listening to this hour of me talking about this show. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I seriously appreciate you so much for watching this, and will never express enough how much I love any fans that I have ever, no matter how like big or small it ends up being in my lifetime. I appreciate every single fan or every single person that's ever checking out what I'm doing. You're all super important to me, and I can't thank you enough. You're my favorite thing to see on my phone is to see anybody watching this stuff, or just seeing, no matter how small the numbers go up, anybody checking any of these videos out at all ever is the most exciting part of my day. And outside of recording this album and making music that I'm making right now, these videos have given me so much. I just feel so much purpose with this, and I love nerding out on how much I love stories and how much I love art and creating people that create things and make stuff for me to enjoy. The Duffer Brothers just made something awesome for all of us to enjoy, and I'm so grateful that they did. I'm so grateful for everybody that made that happen. And I'm grateful for you all too. Thank you.